All right, let's talk about one single, absolutely transformative year, 1942. This was America's first full year of World War II. And the thing is, the conflict wasn't just happening overseas. No, this was a year that reached right into every kitchen, every factory, and every ballpark, and it changed the country forever.
Rationing, baseball, and Bambi. Sounds like a pretty weird mix, right? Sacrifice, sports, and a cartoon deer. But you know what? That's exactly what makes 1942 so fascinating. It was a year of just incredible contradictions. And by the end of this, we're going to connect all those dots.
You see, for millions of Americans, Pearl Harbor was this huge, shocking headline. But in 1942, that's when the war stopped being something over there and became a part of everyday life. The Homefront really did become its own kind of battlefield.
And the impact was, well, immediate. The government started controlling what you could buy, which, as you can imagine, kicked off this whole underground economy. And at the same time, this wave of paranoia and fear just started to sweep across the country. Look, winning a world war takes a staggering amount of stuff. To keep the tanks fueled, the planes in the air, and the soldiers fed, everybody back home had to cut back. I'm talking everything. Gasoline, tires, even coffee and sugar. All of it was suddenly limited, handed out with these little ration books. And, of course, wherever you have rules, you're going to have people trying to get around them. Black markets just popped up almost overnight. You could get those same rationed goods, but for a much higher and totally illegal price. And this created a real moral dilemma for folks, right? Do you do your part for the war effort, or do you pay a little extra for some comfort? But there was a much darker side to all this. A lot of that paranoia and fear got channeled into something really ugly. The government started targeting what they called enemy aliens. We're talking about thousands of German and Italian immigrants. Many of them had been in the U.S. for decades, who were suddenly arrested and put in camps, all based on these lists the FBI had created. So while all of this is happening in the day-to-day lives of Americans, two absolutely monumental and top secret events were unfolding in the background. And they really represent the absolute extremes of what humanity is capable of, both tragedy and genius. In November of 42, the unimaginable started to become horrifyingly real. The first official reports about what was happening in Nazi Germany, the systematic extermination of European Jews, started to reach the Allies and the American public. The sheer scale of the horror, it was just almost impossible to wrap your head around. And here's the stunning part. At almost the exact same time this horrific news was breaking, something else was happening in secret. A team of scientists in Chicago, led by Enrico Fermi, did the impossible. They created the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction. They split the atom. And in doing so, they unleashed a power that would not only end the war, but would define the entire rest of the century. Okay, so with the weight of the war, all the sacrifices at home, and this horrifying news from Europe, you can imagine Americans desperately needed an escape. They just needed a reminder of what normal felt like. And they found it where we often do, in the movies, on the radio, and in sports. And what could be a better escape than the world of Walt Disney? Bambi came out that year, and it was just a story of pure innocence, nature, and life. For a whole generation of kids who were growing up with air raid drills and ration books, it was this moment of beautiful distraction from how harsh the world really was. You know, President Roosevelt himself actually gave sports the green light to continue. He thought it was absolutely essential for morale. So even with the war raging, the games went on. And they became this incredibly powerful, unifying thing for a country that was under a ton of stress. Take the 1942 World Series. It was a classic David versus Goliath story. You had the New York Yankees, who were an absolute dynasty, right? But the underdog St. Louis Cardinals, they just stunned everybody. They won the series 4-1. And that's the kind of victory the whole country could get behind. And then you had heavyweight boxing, which was just as important. Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, wasn't just an athlete. He was a national hero. So when he defended his title against Buddy Bear, his win felt like an American win. It was a symbol of strength and resolve for the entire nation. And of course, we've got to talk about the music. I mean, if you really want to get the feel for a particular year, just listen to the hit songs. 1942 is no different. The music from that year perfectly captures the kind of split personality of the home front.
And the contrast is just wow. On one hand, you've got a song like That Old Black Magic, which is this big, sweeping, romantic ballad, total escapism. And then on the other hand, you have one of the most unique hit songs in American history, Praise the Lord and Pass the Ammunition.
That title just says it all, doesn't it? It's the perfect summary of the 1942 mindset. You've got this mix of faith, duty, patriotism, and this grim determination to just get the job done. It's a phrase that could only have become a hit song at this exact moment in history.
So when you pull back and look at the whole year, what do you see? You see a nation just stretched between these incredible extremes. A country full of people living for a year of profound, kind of dizzying contradictions. When you get right down to it, 1942 was the year of ration books and Bambi. It was the year the world learned about the Holocaust and at the same time unlocked the power of the atom. It was a year filled with fear and suspicion, but also with underdog victories and this incredible resolve. All of these pieces, you have to look at them together, because that's what forms the true picture of the American Homefront. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question, right? In a crisis, we tend to focus on the big stuff, the sacrifices, the battles. But maybe a nation's true character is found somewhere in the balance, in how it manages to fight a world war while still making time for baseball, for music, and for a story about a little deer in the forest.